Hi, welcome to the 29 RKS Jay Flight by Jayco. We're going to start on the outside. The front of the trailer has a path-through storage compartment. Inside this front storage compartment you will find your manual crank for the electric tongue jack and the manual crank for your stabilization jacks. In this particular unit you will also find storage for the onboard RV barbecue, or RVQ. Right now I have that located and set up on the back bumper. Speaking of stabilization jacks, there are 4 of them at the 4 corners of the trailer. It's important to note that you do not level the trailer with these. These are merely used to snug it up to the ground once it's mostly level. We're going to continue along to the front of the trailer. In the tongue you'll see the battery storage area. Next we come to your propane system. This particular RV is set up with a dual crossover regulator. What that means is currently this black handle is pointed to this tank. When this tank drops below a predetermined pressure that's predetermined by the regulator itself, it'll then automatically cross over and draw from this 30-pound tank regardless of which way the handle points. Really good on those cold nights that you're using the furnace. You don't have to come outside and switch tanks. Next we'll move on to your electric tongue jack. Now, as I mentioned previously, in your front storage compartment we had your manual crank. How you'd use that is by removing this rubber port right here, inserting the crank, and you can raise and lower the tongue of your RV. This tongue also comes equipped with a nice loading light. Very handy for hookups at night. Also on the tongue, we have your breakaway safety switch. This end is to be attached to the tow vehicle by this loop. And in the event that the tow vehicle becomes separated from the trailer, it'll pull on this pin, removing it from the breakaway switch and causing the trailer brakes to engage. If at any time you go to move your trailer or you begin to pull your trailer and it feels like the brakes are engaged, one of the first areas I would check is this pin to make sure it's seated properly and all the way into the housing here. I have seen it where it gets pulled out a little bit when you're trying to hook up. You pull the pin out partially and you just don't notice that it's pulled out. Continue along the front of the trailer to the side. We have another loading light here. We have the off-door access to the front storage compartment, as well as under bed storage. You'll notice here we have a tank flush input. You can use this to flush out your black water tank. You basically put the garden hose with water in there and threads on. Right below this we have a couple other items. We have your outdoor shower. And below that we have the city water connection. This is where you would put the garden hose from your campground. We'll drop down here and we'll take a look at the output for your black and gray water tanks. You'll see the valve here for your black, and there's the valve here for the gray. So sometimes you may have to look a little bit for where the valve handles are. As on this unit, the output was here, but the gray water valve handle was all the way over here. Continuing along the outside, we'll come to a secondary gray water holding tank, and therefore a secondary valve. Here we have storage for your 30 amp power supply. This is where you hook up your power to the campground power or to your house. Above this we have the main input for the cable or satellite TV to the trailer. And as we come along the rear, we'll notice a couple things here. First and foremost, we have a housing for a rear view camera. The rear view camera isn't included, but it can be purchased separately. All the wiring and housing are pre-installed to make it very easy to install. Also on the back of this trailer we have the venting for your refrigerator. It's important that this venting remains unblocked by anything, as airflow is needed to go up through the venting for your refrigerator to function properly. As we work our way around, we'll come to the RVQ that we mentioned earlier. This is really simple to set up. It comes with a quick connect hose that connects here on this end, and on the other end it connects to this propane port on your trailer, so it actually functions with the propane bottles and system that are pre-existing. It is important to note that this valve, which is currently in the off position, will need to be turned to the on position in order to use the RVQ. Coming to the outside access to your hot water tank, a couple things that are important to note here is the drain plug and the pressure relief valve. If at any time you're going to remove the drain plug to drain your hot water tank, always open the pressure relief valve first. Otherwise, that drain plug will shoot out like a shot. Continuing on, bring your attention to the head of the awning at either end, where you'll find your speakers. These speakers can be played using the stereo inside the RV, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So there's a lot going on in this area here. First, I'll mention the output for the TV, and along with a mount and a GFCI plug that will allow you to watch TV underneath your awning. Also here, you have your inlet for your potable water tank or your freshwater tank. If you're not going to be camping at home or a campground, this is where you would fill your tank with water and bring your own water with you on the RV itself. And then right below there we have your exhaust for your furnace. It does say hot on it. However, anytime it's underneath your awning, I like to make special notice of it because it is more likely that you could come in contact with it. We'll take a look inside and see what other features this RV has. One of the first things you'll notice inside the door is your fire extinguisher. Also inside the door here is where you'll come to your thermostat. These thermostats use a capacitive touch button, meaning you don't actually have to mechanically press it. It's a very light touch, and you can cycle through the options of fan, cool, or furnace. It is worth noting that if you have it on the furnace and it's set to the high fan setting, it will actually blow air through the air conditioning as well. So if you don't want that to happen, make sure your fan is set to auto, because if it's set on high, it will blow through your AC as well when you turn on the furnace. Next, we'll take a little turn around. We'll take a look at your indication panel here. This is where you can come and see your battery level, your fresh water, black water, and on this particular RV, 2 gray water tanks. That switches for the main lights, as well as the light for underneath your awning. Speaking of awning, right beside this light switch is where we have our controls to extend or retract the awning. And below that we have the controls to extend or extract the slide. Right next door we have the switch to switch you between your water heater and fireplace. Now, we'll go back over here for a second. You'll notice that we have a switch for your water pump, for your water heater on gas, and water heater on electric. In order for you to be able to use your water heater on electric, right here, you won't be able to use your fireplace, and you'll have to switch this switch up to the water heater position. If you run your water heater on gas, no problem. You can still run your fireplace. A small tutorial about the pump and the hot water tank, and they're located side by side. Now the pump is operated by the switch that is right over here on the control panel. But for our purposes, we want to show you a couple things on the pump. One is the valve. With the valve in the positions that it is currently in, it's going to draw water from your freshwater tank. Only if you have water in there, obviously. However, if you're looking to winterize your unit, this is where you would need to do that. So this valve, you would turn until it's in line with this fill hose. And this goes into your bucket of antifreeze. You turn on the pump, and that should work. And next, in conjunction with the winterizing and antifreeze, is the rear portion of the hot water tank. Now the rear portion of the hot water tank has the same valve as the water pump here on the cold and hot lines that go into the hot water tank. When you're winterizing, it's important to switch the valves so they're not pointing into the hot water tank, and what that does is bypasses a hot water tank. You can drain the hot water tank so you don't need to fill it full of antifreeze. So that is why you have those valves there. Turn this valve in line with the fill tube, put it in the antifreeze. Make sure the two valves, and you do have to reach back. I can't really show you, it's a little dark in there. You do have to reach back, but there will be one attached to this hot line, and one attached to the cold line. And make sure they're not pointing into the tank. If they are, that means the antifreeze is going to be going into the tank. Oh, and I should mention that I took out the little dividers ahead of time just for ease of videoing. But there are two dividers that are normally in there covering these up. So you will have to remove them. They are just held in place with red Robbie screws. Turning around here, we'll take a look at the stereo system, the TV. You have basically Bluetooth connectivity as well as USB charging abilities and HDMI. We also have the ability to play DVDs, and you have two zones. Zone 1 will play anything that you're playing, any sound you're playing through this unit. It'll play it inside the trailer, and Zone 2 will play any sound that is going through this unit outside the trailer. You can have any combination of 1 and 2 together or apart, which is really handy. Turn around. Next thing we need to take a minute to talk about is your propane and carbon monoxide detector. There's a button on the front here that has a green light underneath it. You can press that button. When you do, you'll hear a series of loud beeps. Eventually they'll end and it'll go back to being green, and that will indicate that it is good to go and functioning properly. I recommend testing it every 6 months. The reason why I say that is the smoke detector. Every 6 months, the general rule is to change out the batteries. Usually daylight savings time is the easiest way to remember, and that way you are sure that you're always protected. So let's take a look. You have your sink, your range top. Always make sure you remove the glass or open the glass up before using your range top, and also before you drive away, always make sure that you close that back up. I've seen a few of these broken for either lighting them with the top down or driving with them with the top up. To light this, you turn this knob to the light position, and while it's in the light position, you turn the sparker knob. The same can be said for each burner, and the oven is pretty much the same. The only difference is when you turn this to the light position, you have to press and hold it in at the same time as you turn the sparking knob. Take a look at your power center. This is where you will find all the breakers like you'd see in your house, and the fuses like you might see in your car. These fuses and these breakers operate exactly the same way as they do in your house or your car. take a look at your refrigerator. Refrigerator has 3 modes. We have gas only, we have auto, which chooses between gas or electric. It'll always choose electric if it's available. And then we have electric only. Now sometimes when in gas mode, it won't always light the first time it tries, and if that happens, you'll see an indication light letting you know that it didn't light properly. Oftentimes it's either the bottles on the tongue aren't open, or you just open them and pressure hasn't built up yet. So sometimes it's a matter of initiating the lighting sequence. If it doesn't light, turn it off, give it a minute, and try to light again, and usually the pressure will be built up adequately at that point. And you'll see there, it tried to light, the light went from a green to a red, and that would indicate that there's an issue. I know what the issue is. I have the bottles turned off at the front, so it is correctly telling me that there is no gas. Okay, let's move on to the AC unit. We've already talked about it a little bit. Really the only thing that we want to mention are these baffles here. If they're closed, that will force all the air to these ports located throughout the trailer. With it open, the air will simply come out right here. Alright, let's make our way into the bedroom. Have the switch, controls the main lighting for the bedroom. We'll also notice that we have USB connectivity right beside the bed, as well as 12-volt connectivity. Also in this bedroom, you can see it comes set up with a mount for a TV if you choose to purchase, as well as it is pre-wired with 120-volt power and coax for your cable or satellite. Next, we want to talk about your emergency exit. It's important that you know what's here, know how it works. It sounds simple, but in an emergency, if you take a minute ahead of time to think about it, you'll have a lot easier time operating the window. It is pretty simple. Push down on the black tab, push the red handle over, it'll pop out. Swing the handle over, push it all the way out of the window. Pull this red tab to remove the screen, and you may escape to safety. Also, while we're in the bedroom, we'll make note of this nice storage area. You do still have some access to the front compartment. As we walk back in to the main part of the trailer, I'd like to thank you for taking your time to view this video. I hope it answered most, if not all, your questions, but feel free to give us a call and we'll do our best to give you the answers you need. Thank you.